بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Today we're going to talk about the path that leads to anger. This is something that, right? So last time we were talking about takeaways that we took from last week. In terms of, yes.
You said that is something that is, non-essential to life, like survival,
sure,
like food, shelter, etc. It's not, you don't choose anything.
MashaAllah, excellent. So Samira mentioned an important point. So we have her now. There are things that we are allowed to get angry over, and those things, Imam Ghazali, he deemed them what? Necessary. And he said the things we shouldn't get angry over, these things are deemed unnecessary. In this third category, what was the third category? The third one was necessary for some. For necessary for some. And he gave two examples. What were the two examples? A scholar needs? He needs books, right? A scholar needs books. Those books are necessary for him. And a carpenter needs? Yeah, needs his tools. A taxi driver needs his car, right? So these are all different things. These are all different means that they need and that they rely upon in order to get their necessary sustenance. So every cure is by understanding the makeup of the disease and removing its causes. And he said this applies similarly to anger. What do you guys think about this statement? How do you feel about his analogy? How is he treating anger? Right, he's treating anger as a sickness. Right, he's treating anger as a sickness. And again, when we talk about Ghazali, it's always important to keep things in context. Is he talking about all anger? No. What type of anger is he talking about? The unnecessary one. So, and the reason that I emphasize this and I bring it back time and again is that sometimes people will open up to like just this section. Right, so if I open up just to this section, what is the takeaway that I'm going to get? I shouldn't be angry at all. Like anger is not justified, I'm not allowed to be angry. Anger is something that is a disease, and it's something I should avoid at all costs. But that's clearly not the message here, but there's no way to know unless I read the entirety of it in context. So I really like this narration. This is the only one he actually shares. So Yahya, he said to Isa, yeah, who's Yahya? Who is Yahya?
That's his cousin.
That's his cousin.
John the Baptist.
Who we know to be, or what we would call in Latinize. We'd Latinize into John the Baptist. Right? He was cousin to Isa alayhi salatu wasalam. So he asked Isa. He said, "What is the harshest thing? What is the harshest thing?" So Isa alayhi salam, he replied, "What? Allah's anger." He said, "What brings about Allah's anger?" He said, "When you anger." So he said, what starts and causes anger? So Isa alayhi salam, he said what? He said arrogance, pride, boasting, and fanaticism. Is there good? What is the difference between good pride and bad pride?
Pride in Islam.
Okay. Pride in Islam. That's an example. It's not proud of what? Right? It's not proud of the self, it's proud of different virtues. MashaAllah. Right? It's being proud of different virtues. So, and this is something that's really important. And he actually did this and he talks about it. But I really like this narration. So the reasons that anger worse are these. Right? He mentions all of these: vanity, flaunt, joking, making fun, ridicule, humiliation, being the joke time and again, being contrarian, disloyalty, harshness, seeking extraordinary wealth and status. Is there anything here that you guys feel? Do you feel he kind of hit the nail on here when he's talking about those things that make an individual angry? Okay. I mean, it can be. But the question is, if the person's angry, does this make him angrier or no? Right? It's just going to inflame. It's going to inflame that person. It's just going to make this individual even angrier than he already is. Sure. So there are definitely layers to it, right? So you have light joking, and then you have making fun, then you have ridicule, and then you have just humiliating this person. Yeah.
Somebody's already mad.
So I think both can apply, right? Can't do some of these incite anger?
Yeah.
Absolutely, right? If I'm not, or if I'm already angry, and then somebody comes and makes fun of me, what is going to happen? Right? You're gonna get even angrier. Huh? But I'm saying, responding. Why are you responding? Because you're happy with the person. Am I responding happily? Somebody, like, I'm heated and somebody's making fun of me. I'm gonna be like, yeah, you look like a, right? It's not going to be happy. You're going to respond in kind. You're going to respond in kind. I thought it was interesting. Being contrarian. Do you guys know what contrarian is?
Yeah, black sheep.
Yeah, okay, a black sheep is a general description, but a contrarian is somebody who's constantly what? Yeah, it's like it just always goes against the grain. You know what I mean? Just, you know what I mean? Like sometimes it's to troll, right? For sure, and sometimes it's just to feel different. You know, so they'll just keep saying things. It's like, okay, well, you know, well, actually, this is it. Well, actually, I think da da da. And they just keep being contrarian. There are a number of. So there are certain speakers actually that I feel are like their job is just to be contrarian, and it's a way to get attention. Right? And why do these people get attention? The viewer is what?
Not used to what they're saying.
No, well, not just not used to what they're saying. Sometimes it's inflammatory, right? So you hear it, you'd be like, how could this guy say this? You know what I mean? Like you'll have somebody, he clearly doesn't believe that the earth is flat, but he's advocating for a flat earth. Right? Like, have you heard these people? You know what I mean? Like he's advocating, and you're like, yo, you don't even believe this. And you're yelling at the screen, you know, like frustrated with this person, but he's doing it just to be a contrarian. Yeah.
I feel like I'm doing that now. It's not being personal,
Mhm.
depending on the person and the relationship with that person.
Sure.
Like giving them information at a time that they're upset. Like if it's one person doing it, it might
Oh, absolutely.
make it worse.
Absolutely.
Than someone else did it.
No, so the thing is, why are you telling them or why are you giving them information? Because you're advising them. And we have always said the most fundamental thing when it comes to giving advice is what? Building a relationship. Right? This is the most fundamental thing. And many times it is that relationship that will even dictate if I have a gateway to this person or I have an entryway with this person. Because if I have a bad relationship with them, the chances of them listening to me when I'm giving them advice is what? Right? Not just that, it goes down, right? You know what I mean? Like he already doesn't like me and I'll be like, well, you know, Akhi, I think you should pray on time. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to be like, you know what I mean? Like he's just going to go even further, or he might even say something just to spite me, just to be angry at me. So we have to make sure that we understand these relationships when we're advising each other. So he said, in summary, the worst of all character traits. So all the things he mentioned, he said these are all terrible character traits, and meaning that these are traits that we what? Like we shouldn't have. Like we shouldn't have. So is it okay to joke sometimes?
Yes.
Absolutely. Should it be a character trait? Right? This is what he's talking about. Like this shouldn't be something that you are known for. It shouldn't be you shouldn't be known for, like, you know, do we put people down sometimes? Absolutely. You know, I mean, I think it is a healthy part of friendship. It helps, you know, it helps build that tough skin. You know what I mean? Like, because it opens up the door to criticism. Like this time it might not be a criticism. It might just be like me actually making fun of you. But it allows me for other times, because, you know, we're kind of always like kind of poking at each other. We're kind of helping each other define those boundaries and see what those boundaries are. And I think this ridicule is definitely a part of that. As long as they're present, this anger will be present. So we have to work and do our best to remove them as character traits that we have. So what are some of the cures? So he actually goes through those one by one. So vanity. So what is the cure for vanity? What do you guys think? Huh?
Or the first thing I thought was hijab.
Hijab is the cure for vanity? Wow. Okay, what if, like, okay. I mean, maybe. Maybe for some people. Maybe for some people. But in general, how do I not become vain? So what is the opposite of vanity? He says humility.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
He says be humble. He says be humble. And sometimes it's not easy. Right? It's not easy. You know, if I'm constantly in the mirror every morning, like, You know what I mean? Like, and just like, how do I make myself humble at that point?
Stop.
Using social media? Okay, for some people, absolutely. I agree 100%. So, I mean, and subhanAllah, I came across a number of studies that were talking about, like, the people who take more selfies, there is actually data to show that those people are more narcissistic. Yeah.
What's the connection?
Huh? What's the what?
The connection between.
What's the connection between self-love and self-love?
No. And,
Huh? Narcissism is self-love.
no, narcissism and taking love selfies. That's the connection.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yes. So he had mentioned getting off social media. So I said for some people that's definitely good. So I mean, social media is a tool, right? It's definitely a tool. And who is social media for? Social media is good for people who are already extroverts, right? So if you're already extroverted, social media is actually a positive outlet for many of people. And the reason I say that, it's like giving money to a rich person. What does a rich person do with money? They're not going to spend. That's what poor people do, right? what do rich and rich people don't hoard either. You have to understand the habits of rich people, right? Rich people, they take money and what do? Invest it. So when you give them money, they make more money. If you give me an outlet to make more friends and I'm an extrovert, what am I going to do? I'm going to make even more friends, right? So and there are a number of studies to actually show that social media for people who are extroverts is actually healthy for them because it's just another outlet for them to make friends. Introverts tend to have a problem with it. Right? Introverts tend to have a problem with social media. It's not too dissimilar from vanity. What do you guys think? If I'm constantly showing off, how do I curb that? It's either you guys don't have any of these problems. Allahumma barik, you know what I mean? So humility is bad?
No, I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm saying that I think that people like start to fear.
So here, let me put it this. There's a difference between vanity and confidence. Does that make sense? Vain means what? It's just like self-obsession. But confidence is what? There's a difference between me being in love with myself and me being in love with how Allah created me. You know what I mean? Like, there's definitely a fine line there that needs to be balanced. But that's what makes this so hard, right? That's what makes this so challenging. This is not everybody can just, you know what I mean? Like, all right, I'm going to be humble. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't work. Like, these aren't switches that we can just turn on or turn off. These things are actually very challenging. Things that we constantly need to work on. So for flaunting, he said knowing oneself. Why do you think he said that? I thought that was a very interesting insight. So he said for a person who flaunts, like, you know, they know a lot, and like, yeah, you know, I got this new Rolex, and I was just on my yacht last weekend. Like, you know, so these people, why is it important that they know themselves?
You're gonna go back to dirt, that kind of thing.
Right? You know, so it's kind of a reminder, not just I'm going to go back to dirt, it helps remind me where where I came from. Right? Like, it really reminds me and helps me put in perspective where I came from. And not just that, my own shortcomings. Just because I have all these things doesn't mean that I'm what? That I'm perfect. And I have shortcomings. And who knows those shortcomings best? Well, after Allah, ourselves. But the only way for me to engage them is if I'm actually honest. Right? If I'm actually honest. If I'm not honest with myself, I'll never engage and I will continue flying. He says that I have an entire section covering this. It's called the Book of Vanity. Right? So he said refer to that if you want to deal with the section more. Inshallah, we will get to it and we will talk about it. Huh? Is it self-promotion? Yo, Ghazali does it. Bro, listen. Ghazali, he does this a lot. Man. He's like, yeah, and I've talked about this. You know, just go refer to book such and such. So pride. Pride. What do you guys think is the cure for pride? Right. So not humiliating. Right. There's a difference between humiliating and humility. He mentions that all of these things we should keep in account. So he says here that we have a shared parentage. Why is that important? If I'm proud, this fact of me knowing that we all came from Adam alayhi salam, why should that humble me? Yeah, nobody's superior. Like nobody's better. Like we all have a shared parentage. All have a shared ancestry. What makes me think that I'm better than anyone else? He also says that pride should be, and this is something that was mentioned earlier, pride shouldn't be in the self, it should be in the virtue. It should always be in virtue. And having that perspective that pride in itself is an evil character trait. So here there's a lot of perspective that Ghazali is actually telling us to focus on when we fall into this issue and when we have this problem. Yes?
Can you just a couple seconds describe the difference between pride and arrogance?
Sure. So being proud, like arrogance is just love of the self, right? Like, I am better than anyone else. I am superior than others. Versus being proud is like, I accomplished this. I was able to do this. Allah has given me this thing. I have, I ran a 5K, or I climbed this, or I swam so much, or I did this well on a particular exam. Alhamdulillah, I've made all my prayers on time for the past 10 years.
Is this something bad?
No, these are all good things. These are all good things.
What about flaunting your pride?
Flaunting. So how do I know that? No. How do I know the difference? So me being proud of those things, man. Like I'm happy with myself that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has given me the ability, for example, to make my prayers on time for the past 20 years. Like that, just an example. I'm not saying that's right. That's just an example. So that's one example. Now, what is the fine line between me being proud of that and me flaunting it? Yes, the intention. The intention. That's where I'm going to draw the line, right? Because the thing is, a lot of it depends on context. Some people be like, man, I'm I'm struggling to pray and blah blah, and it's like, no, you can do it, man. I was like, remember where I was. Remember, I used to do X, Y, Z. I said, alhamdulillah, for the past 10 years, I've been able to pray on time. You know what I mean? Like, so these type of things, they can be motivating for others, and it really depends on context. In the second situation, is he flaunting to this guy? Like, oh man, you weak, bro. I can, you know what I mean? No, that's not what he's doing. He's using it as a means to what? To motivate and encourage, and that's what's important there. And at the same time, he's proud of it. Yes.
So obviously, it's intention. But at the same time, would it be on us to deliver that in a way that would,
For sure. I mean, we do the best that we can, right? We do the best that we can. We have to make sure that when we word things, we try to word them in the best way so that people don't misconstrue. And I'll give another more common example. Like when dealing with the opposite gender, is it possible that when a person is talking to a female, that she'll take it as flirting? Right? No, I'm saying she might take it as flirting, but my intention was never to what? It was never to flirt. But what should an individual do? Number one, they should always keep their intention pure. And secondly, they should make sure that they're using language that is very specific and direct. You know what I mean? So would similar here? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes?
I'm going to put myself out there, like in outreach, we take photographs and to document our work. And I found that it offends some people, like some people, I'm not saying just sort of,
sure.
Why you take so many pictures of yourself, you just love yourself. That has come back to me.
So we can talk to Shema later. So.
Okay. I have a later.
No, and the thing is,
but my intention isn't
exactly.
to document
But in this situation, it's your intention, right? It's your intention, and you already know the reasons why you're doing it. And the additional thing is, like, sometimes we get criticism. Right? All of us criticize this, like, hey, you shouldn't think like that. Why are you doing it out of arrogance? What should my first reaction be?
Asking what?
Okay, assume the best. Explain. What else?
Take it as a reminder. Even if it's not.
Even if it's not true, introspect. Be like, okay, am I doing it? You know what I mean? Like, am I actually doing it out of arrogance? Like, taking it as an opportunity. Because it's possible that maybe this person has ill intent, but is it possible sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses people to give us messages? And at the end of the day, okay, am I losing anything by introspecting?
No.
Absolutely not. I can only better myself. So the moment a person comes to me and be like, no man, I think that's arrogant, and I should sit there and be like, you know what, it actually might be. Let me reflect. Let me think about this. Because you know what happens? All of a sudden, even if this person has ill intent, I automatically what?
Assume the best.
I disarm them. Like, this person has ill intent. They really, they want to come at my neck, and I'm like, yeah, bro, you know what? You might actually be right. And all of a sudden, what happened? The power that they had over you, it's gone. And just like what happened with us on Twitter. You know what I mean? Like, somebody, if somebody says to you like, oh, you say that you're a homophobe, you know what you can do? No, then you can be like, okay, maybe I am. Yeah, I need to. You know what I mean? Like, I need to introspect, because you don't make that decision.
Do I need to?
I do. Huh?
For what I said? Do I
Yes.
need to? Really?
Like, deeply. Okay. Twitter is like it's a beacon of character. And yeah, so if you really want to see like your character reflection, Twitter is the place to go. So if anyone wants to improve themselves, remember, go to Twitter. Go to Twitter.
Well, which account?
Huh?
Which account?
Which account? The one with the blue check marks, right? So making fun. He's saying that if you make fun of people, right? So if we make fun of others, then we should busy ourselves with religious obligations and, again, perspective. Realizing who it is that we're speaking to. And that it's very possible, because even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this, that the person that I'm making fun of is possible that what? That they're better than you. Right? So when we speak about others, and when we talk about others, there's a very real possibility that this person has a higher standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than I. Joking, he's busying oneself with seeking good character and traits, and also seeking knowledge. Because these are levels, right? So it's getting more and more aggressive, right? So making fun is a very light, joking is getting a little bit more serious. So he's saying taking more serious steps. That's why he's scaling in this way, right? What are more serious steps? Actually going and looking at your character and making adjustments to it. Versus over here, he's saying no, just keep doing good deeds. Like, if you do good deeds, you'll be able to take care of this. You're not going to do this. But now, if you've reached this level, okay, no, you need to take more serious steps. And you have to really take a serious effort. Ridicule, he says here, making conscious effort not to hurt others and protecting oneself from ridicule. Why do you think he added this in the end? Why put that at the end? Like, okay, not only should you always make conscious efforts to help others, but you should also make sure that you are not putting yourself in a position to be ridiculed.
Because they can ridicule better than you can ridicule them.
That's a possibility. But here, if we're talking about the self, right? It's less of a focus on others and it's more of a focus on ourselves. So the question then comes for me, okay, why is Ghazali telling me not to put myself in a situation where I might get ridiculed?
Mindset anger.
Right? It is definitely related. But what else? If I have a tendency to ridicule others, what's going to happen when somebody ridicules me?
Oh, you
Respond. I'm going to respond immediately.
With the better position.
Yeah. Huh?
Usually they respond with the better.
I mean, it depends on the person, right? Some people have sharper tongues, some people have duller tongues. You know what I mean? Like, it really depends on the individual. But at the end of the day, I will for sure, if I put myself in a situation where I can be ridiculed, what's going to happen with me? Because it's not about the people. It's about me, right? So what am I going to do? I'm probably going to be just as aggressive, just as angry. Like, all of these things I'm trying to avoid, I'm going to fall right into them. So that's more indicative of a deeper problem. That's indicative of a deeper, like, if I keep putting myself down, and he talks about that, inshallah, and we'll get to it. And if he doesn't address it directly, then we'll talk about it at the end of class. So here, being contrarian, this is what we had spoken about. Making you use appropriate language and not giving harsh or bitter answers, right? So this is a problem with a lot of us, right? When people say something and we disagree with them, how do we respond?
Aggressive.
Like, we respond aggressively, and not just aggressively, we'll say it like in a harsh, mean way. Instead of speaking to instead of giving the person space, instead of actually hearing them out. Do I have to agree with everyone who I deal with and speak to? No. Even the chances of that happening are low. And if I'm only with people that agree with me, then what do I need to do? I need new friends. Like, those aren't my friends. Because a friend is somebody who's actually going to criticize me. A friend is somebody who's actually going to tell me when I make a mistake. A friend isn't going to be someone who claps for me every time I do something. That's not a friend. That's just a narcissist who's doing it because they want to get clapped for too. Seeking extraordinary wealth and status, how to deal with this? This is a very simple answer. And we had spoken about this before, that contentment, it doesn't come from without, it comes from within. And this is something that we all have to seek. It's something that we have to try. And what does that mean? It means that I'm happy with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me. Does it mean that I shouldn't strive for more? No, absolutely not. Like, I'm happy with where I am religiously. I'm happy with where I am socially. I'm happy with where I am financially. But does it mean that I shouldn't improve in every single one of these avenues of my life? I should always be working to improve. The Muslim in that sense is never content, because he's always setting a new standard. He's always setting a new bar. Right? He's always setting a new personal record. And these things are really important. All right. Humiliation. So if...
Excuse me,
yeah.
you said like contentment, right?
Mm.
It's supposed to be the place where you said like content, right? You shouldn't strive. So you just you said two statements,
Yeah.
which contradict each other.
What are those?
Isn't it? Like you said, like
Being content and setting a higher standard.
Strive more. How it can be?
Sure. So should I be content with my spirituality?
I don't know, if you reach some level, you should strive more. Isn't it contentment then?
I'm asking. So for now, like, I make my 5 prayers, I'm making azkar, I read Qur'an, etc. I'm done. But isn't that the opposite of contentment?
Yes, it is.
It's not, because it's different. Okay? There's contentment with Allah in this situation, right?
No, I got it.
You understand? Like, there's me being content with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of this situation, but does it mean I'm not going to strive for more?
No, I mean the aspects of life, like financial.
Even though, but I'm saying, why make an exception for this? Like, spiritually, I should strive to get better. Like, financially, or no?
No.
Yeah, of course.
But then it's not content. You have to go.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because you have to understand, what you're saying, Akhi, it becomes a fine line between contentment and status quo. Because there's a difference between being content and being, what's a good word? Just kind of floating. Like stagnation, Jazakallah khair, that's a perfect word. Right, there's a fine line, contentment and stagnation. A Muslim should never be stagnant, but he should always be content. And how do you not become stagnant?
Yeah, it is like
By setting standards. And again, Akhi, being content in the moment, being content with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of what I have, it doesn't mean that I don't want more. It doesn't mean I can't strive for more. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to achieve more. But it means that what He has given me at this moment, I'm pleased with. And if He doesn't give me more, I'm pleased with it. It takes it away.
So you're
I'm still pleased.
setting goal, but
Yes, we have to set goals. Man.
You're not obsessed with even.
Yes, you're not obsessed with it. Absolutely. Yeah.
now I got it.
Okay. So here, and I think this comes back to your point, Mia, when we talk about humiliation, right? So if you always to humiliate and put down others, stretch.
No, aren't you supposed to be quiet when the adhan is being called?
It's a sunnah, right? It's not an obligation. So it was a good question. So humiliation, like, if I'm always trying to humiliate others, why am I trying to humiliate and others? Because I don't have any self-respect. And the way that I value myself is how? By putting other people down. Right? So the way I bring myself up is by pulling other people down instead of actually working to what? To grow and to build myself. Now, this is something that's really dangerous. Right? The reason that I'm humiliating and putting other people down is because I feel that this is the only way to climb. This is the only way to better myself. And this is completely and absolutely wrong. So what does Ghazali say? He actually says it. He said, man, get some self-respect. Go and love who you are. Yes?
What about the person who's getting the humiliation? How should they respond?
They should get out of that situation. Right, so if I'm in a situation where I'm being humiliated, astaghfirullah. Right, so like, so all right, is it Boca Raton or no? So here in this situation, if I'm being humiliated, then what am I supposed to do? I have to remove myself from that situation. Not just remove myself, I have to make sure that I don't do what? I don't put myself in a similar situation.
But sometimes it's
What? sorry.
Co-workers, like,
So even if it's coworkers, what do I do? So coworkers are like constantly here, like walk around like this, huh?
you have to work with
Of course we have to work with them, but I'm saying, am I constantly walking around like this, arm in arm with every single coworker? Right, there's spaces within a workspace. So what you do is like you isolate yourself. If you know there's certain timings where people gather. I'm sorry? Or play the game better. You know what I mean? Like there are so many things you can do. I'll give you 2 weeks. It's like, forget this, man. I can't deal with this. But at the end of the day, you know, and this goes back to a very fundamental concept that we have Islamically, is that not only am I not allowed to oppress others, but I'm also not allowed to be what? To be oppressed. Right? If I have a choice and I'm in a situation where I'm voluntarily putting myself in being oppressed, and this can be this can be in a relationship, this can be in a workspace, this could be socially, it could be in so many different things. If I'm voluntarily putting myself in that situation, the only person I can blame is who? Myself. So fighting all of these traits, it requires something that I feel is missing, unfortunately, in many of us, which is hardship and adversity. Like, working hard is lost. Like, working hard, it has become a very lost art. There are very few people who have faced true adversity. There are very few people who have faced true hardship. I remember I had there was like a group meeting, and I sat down with them, and the first question I asked them, I said, "Have you ever been held at gunpoint?" 0. The second question, how many of you ever been in a fight? 0. You know, and the reason I'm saying this is not because like, yeah, you know, you guys go get into a fight later today. No, right? The purpose that I'm saying is that if you don't know what it feels like, if you don't know what pain feels like, you're never going to grow. Pain is a very important meter and a very important metric in our lives. It helps us define and understand our boundaries, and it helps us understand ourselves and our bodies. If I don't know what it's like to be hungry, I'll never appreciate food. If I don't know what it's like to be poor, I won't understand what it feels like to give somebody else a tip. Like these are things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts us through so that we develop character. And why is character so lost in this generation? It's because they're spoiled. Right? They never had to feel or deal with any of these things. Yes?
I love that you mentioned tip, because that's one we take for granted.
Yeah.
Like, you don't realize those people are working for nothing, so they depend on a tip in that restaurant. And I think I've been with many people, including myself, at one point where we are so stingy with our tips.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, like, being stingy or being like generous with your tips and stuff like that, I think those things can only be, you know, however people do it, that's up to them. I'm not here to dictate on anyone. But at the end of the day, like, why would I even give one if I don't even appreciate what it's like to be poor? You know what I mean? Like, if I grew up with a silver spoon in my mouth, it's like what was the statement of one of the queens? It's like, oh, there's no bread, and she says what? Let them eat cake. So disconnected. You know what I mean? So disconnected from reality. So disconnected from hardship. And I feel like, again, many of our children have faced this problem and this issue. Yes.
So are we, like, as trying to be good parents, are we supposed to put a little hardship in there for them?
Yes. Absolutely. So in Ghazali, he talks about this. If you go back to one of the classes, he discusses on how we should raise our children. And I'll just share one example, and then we're going to continue, inshallah. But he says that, like, for example, once a week, just have them eat plain rice. You're not starving them, right? You know what I mean? Like, they're getting food, but what is the advantage of giving them plain rice? Now they'll appreciate when there's flavors. Right? Now they'll appreciate spice. Yes.
What do you think of the approach of just remembrance of the law as a way of teaching them the difference?
Sure. I mean, I agree 100%, but that is part of the solution. I don't think just putting them in, like, you know, telling them it's like, okay, hey, listen, you just got to go make remembrance.
So you're basically, you think that hardship, like if you give the hardship, it should be like a smaller thing for people to essentially.
Of course. Here, another example is like having them serve food when there's iftar being distributed. It's not hard, but what happens? Like, so me as a child, never experiencing this, or me being like, you know, for like my kids, they're the son of the imams, and they're the daughters of the imam, so they're going to get special treatment. But now if they're going and serving, what different perspective do you think that's going to give them?
They're not special.
But they're not special. And that they, just like they were served, they also can be in a position where what? They have to serve others. And not just like this idea of khuluq, this idea of character traits. Character traits, you know when they show up? When we interact. Character traits only show up when we interact with people. They're never going to show up in a vacuum. Can I show bravery? Or courageousness? Right? There's nothing happening for me to actually express that. I actually have to, the situation needs to come. And the scary thing is, like, how many of us are willing to even look in the mirror and ask ourselves, like, hey, am I courageous? Am I brave? Like, it's tough. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not. Yeah.
I just wanted to give another
Yeah.
clear example of the kids that are growing up today. There was I was at an event and a 2-year-old was standing there, and I think they broke something.
Did you take a picture? Document it,
Yeah,
yes.
I have a full video. But what happened was the little kid said, "It's okay, we can buy another one."
Yeah.
That,
It's very telling.
I was shocked.
It's
for
very
1
telling.
second.
It's very telling. Very telling. I'm saying even me, alhamdulillah, like I didn't have like a super privileged childhood, but like when I wanted to buy something, or if I wanted my parents to buy something for me, I'd be like, oh, can we get this? And they're like, no, I don't have money. I'd be like, just go to the bank. Because you just see them going to the bank and you see them getting money. There are certain things that you take for granted.
Stuff today
But
created, right?
I'm sorry.
Stuff today are created in abundance. That's the right.
So I mean, things are always there in abundance. Our spending habits, our spending habits have changed.
Because when I did the inspection, the mechanic told me before the 80s, he's an older guy.
Yeah.
He said we will never get a new engine. We would always rebuild the engine.
Yeah.
Today,
yeah.
any little problem.
No, it's replaced. No, so the throwaway culture is definitely there. There's no doubt about that. But one thing that is clearly happening across the board is the spoiling, right? You know what I mean? Like we take everything for granted. We take everything for granted, and it is kind of natural. So me, like my dad would yell, turn the AC off, or you're hot, or turn the fan up higher. You know what I mean? Like this is how it was. Many of us are making more money than our parents did at this age. And what's happening is that has a trickle-down effect. So now, when I feel hot, I'm just like, Alexa, turn the AC up. You know? And who's being affected? My kids. I can appreciate, because I went through the hardship. Are my kids going to appreciate it? No, not as much. So what do? This requires hardship and adversity so that we understand these things, so that we can actually avoid them. The goal, so he says, he actually has an entire stream of thought, of conscious that should happen. We find the trait that we want to remove. Then we try to consistently avoid it. When we consistently avoid it, it actually becomes second nature. This second nature means that it is now a trait. It is a character trait that we have successfully removed from our heart, and we've purified our hearts from it, which in turn removes anger. And then what happens after this? You start again. You start again, and you